I mean, I don't think most people understand how much power it actually has on your day-to-day purchasing power and life.
Of course.
Not only with the issuance of currency, of course, which is the big one, but in terms of, if they want you to spend more, they lower interest rates. If they want you to spend less, they higher interest rates.
So it's kind of like, Dance Monkey, Dance Monkey. They've got us on strings. That's the reality. It means it's time for the Greater Wealth. Got Derek Whittaker beside me, mate. Great to see you. Really happy that you're in, you're organised, you got the laptop, mate. You look like you're an efficient machine.
You're very kind. You're very kind.
Creative. Over there, well, the polar opposite, really.
You know what's really, really funny about this one? Because normally I'm the one that's running around like a headless chicken.
Yeah.
But today it's Derek.
No. You've got to enjoy this. That's why I thought I was talking about.
He's borrowing some of my ADHD energy, like just rush to get everything done before the deadline. So Derek has been sitting here frantically looking at news stories because there's been a lot going on, but it's just putting the show
Putting it together, exactly right.
He's
done the research, he just hasn't put the Lego in its place.
And it's saying every time, so people don't know this, every single time Derek finds a story that he wants to cover in the thing, he just sends it to me on Telegram, so he knows where to find everything. It's sort of like I'm his storage, and so I've got so many stories in my Telegram account at the moment. Like I can't use it because Derek keeps spamming things into it.
You are literally, he's just a hard drive. He's nothing else here. Okay, I got him. Hey, by the way, before we go any further, welcome to everyone online. It's been really great to see the support coming on, and the questions. Bring your questions. Don't be shy. Don't sit there. Get those questions in. But first, I see 51 recommendations for the Reserve Bank.
51.
Is that like Area 51? Just to be careful.
That's a good one, Darren.
I don't know how you can do 51. I mean, it's a lot, but that's the biggest news story I think since we met last is that the Reserve Bank of Australia is getting pummeled. It's getting absolutely pummeled because it's going to lose its power to be able to set interest rates.
Well, they've been so damn accurate lately.
And that's been the big deal. And that's going to be huge when you think about it, that they are now taking that power from them to do that. And also they're going to have an independent board that does that and sets the interest rates for them.
Yep.
And then they will basically look at more the internal runnings of the bank. It's going to be really interesting how this works out. Plus, they're going to hold a press conference. So every time that there is an interest rate rise, they have to face the media and do that. So they can't just be this independent body that sets interest rates and then says that's what it's going to be.
Will they become a bit of a media whore then? Are they going to become a Dan Andrews or a, what's his name? McGowan, yeah. Sorry, I try and forget. I try so hard. But, they
don't stand election, do they?
No, they don't.
Right.
But the fact is, if they're up there in the public eye, are we just creating some sort of another celebrity?
I don't think bankers particularly want to be celebrities.
No?
I don't
Good
think
to hear.
I don't think central banks want to be celebrities.
Okay.
I find that the extremely wealthy don't like publicity. They try to avoid it and do things otherwise. So it's not in the character of a bank to go, hey, look at me. It's a centralized bank.
I haven't seen the Rothschilds on TikTok, so okay.
I did hear about they tried to make a documentary about the children of the extremely wealthy. And it got smashed really, really quickly. So it got destroyed straight away.
I saw some of it.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. So just going back to the Reserve Bank. First of all, the Reserve Bank, there's still regulatory legislation in place to kind of control what they can and can't do. Yep. So my first concern is this an attempt to get around those regulatory legislation that's on the Reserve Bank?
Right.
So I'd love to see what legislation they want to put out to do this, because again, I know I shouldn't keep harping on about the voice, but that's literally a way to get around the Australian Constitution.
Oh, look, there's a reason to harp on about the voice. Let's be honest with you. It is an absolute constitutional risk. It's a massive risk.
No, it's flat out racist, but anyway.
Well, small details. Come on, really. But this is it's another great thing about the show. You come in the political angle. You obviously come in predominantly with the financial. Well, we say the financial angle, but a bit of everything. It's such a detailed thing that we need to come at all these different angles. Really, the two are cross-pollinated.
I think, look, with the power that the Reserve Bank has had, there needs to be more transparency. The Treasurer was talking about how basically they haven't been happy with how the RBA has been performing over the last few years, particularly with making this promise. There'll be no interest rate hikes until 2024, and that went out the window. And I think it was a promise that was probably doomed to fail anyway, because there's so many economic influences outside of Australia, outside of its control, e.g. inflation, wars, etc., supply chains, all that stuff has put pressure on economics and business. And you can't really make that kind of promise.
When I heard him make that absolute promise, you know what I heard in my life, in my ears, my mind? It was,
God, I'm glad I don't have a mortgage.
1990, no child will live in poverty. That's what I heard. I heard Bob Hawke doing his thing all those years ago. And the moment Bob Hawke said that, what is it, 30 odd years ago, you just think, like there is no way that is possible.
Have a look at Darwin at the moment, like. Anyway.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, if when you're talking about absolutes like that, particularly in a sector that is so volatile, like, obviously the financial sector is, it's just, quite frankly, it showed them to be inadequate in their position as far as I'm concerned. It showed them not to be kind of out of their depth.
That was going to be my next point. If he's made an absolute promise like that there will be no interest rate hikes, can we then take legal action against him for all the people who own mortgages, saying, you promised us no interest rate hikes, now we've had X amount, my mortgage has gone up, $300 a week.
Sure.
I want reimbursement for your promise that there'll be no interest rate hikes until this date.
Yeah.
Well, your contract's not really with the central bank, is it? Your contract's more with the retail bank and sector.
But the central bank said there'll be no interest rate hikes. He didn't say which interest rate hikes. And I can tell you now, I'm with ANZ, and they said, due to the interest rates going up, our interest rates are going up too.
So they've made that link, right? They've made that link very clear. So, look, I don't know. We're not America. We don't sue over anything.
Well, actually, we sue more than America does.
I know, particularly in New South Wales, I'm told, the most litigious place on earth. Is that correct?
I wouldn't be surprised.
No,
it is New South Wales.
It's not?
No, California is number one.
Oh, of course. Sorry.
Don't take that from California.
Derek, aren't you from California?
I am from California.
So, have you sued anyone
I
lately?
haven't seen anyone.
Come on, Derek. You're letting California down. Go sue Dan Andrews or someone for just looking at you funny.
Oh, dear. All right. So, we've got our 51 recommendations, right? Okay. They're a bit alien to me. Boom, boom. But what are the key ones? What changes are going to make?
I think the biggest one is the one I stated is that interest rates will no longer be determined by that board. They'll also have to then do a please explain over why there is an interest hike or drop, etc. They'll love to give the news that interest rates are dropping as opposed to the other. I think it's an attempt to be more transparent, hold more accountability to this organisation that's really done its own thing.
Yeah.
It's not dependent on votes. It's not dependent on being popular. And it's really, I don't think most people understand how much power it actually has on your day-to-day purchasing power and life.
Of course.
Not only with the issuance of currency, of course, which is the big one, but in terms of, if they want you to spend more, they lower interest rates. If they want you to spend less, they higher interest rates.
Well, it's kind of like, dance monkey. They've got us on strings. That's the reality. And I see, so many people these days, we have massive debt. And the slave life you live because of debt, right? And I see how people's lifestyles change so dramatically on that day, on that Tuesday when they go up. You see, people's mortgages go up a massive amount because they're massive mortgages, massive amounts of money.
Chris Joy has said that, his big concern was that Phil Lowe told, because there were going to be no interest rates hikes, that people went out, borrowed, spent like drunken sailors, in his words, because he had their backs. And that obviously hasn't not transpired.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. I know someone who was working in the mining sector and got themselves a ridiculous mortgage, absolutely ridiculous mortgage, right? Yeah, hilt, right, all the way. And they put themselves in a position where they were financed to, leverage to such a small degree that any drop in their wages would basically see them shot. Now, the combination of, quite frankly, the sector changing and that, becoming a factor, plus this, that person has now missed 3 or 4 payments in a row and is now looking at losing that home, right? It's very real. It's very real.
We have a question online, so make sure you do send your questions through for those listening at home on the comfort of their own computer or wherever. So Josh, welcome back to the stream. Not sure why it would let a private foreign bank set Australia's fiscal policies.
Oh, they have been for years, mate. So why not, right? What's changed?
So I think a lot of people, if you don't want to be controlled by foreign entities, it's really important to understand what they control, so that way you can put safeguards in place. So it's simple. The easiest one: don't get a credit card. Don't have personal loans. Don't go take money out to go do a European holiday. Like, I wish those sort of things were taught to me as a kid. Like, because our education system just doesn't touch. Like, I call it the consequence of money. If you go out and buy a car on finance, you're paying like 3, 4, 5 times as much for that car as what you should have paid. So if you just spend 6 months saving and then buy the car, you've actually saved yourselves 5 years worth of financial payments.
Absolutely.
So just really getting yourself educated on the consequences of financing, the consequences of money is super important, and start saving early.
Yeah, save early, but also, I mean, you just make careful financial decisions. I know, look, hey, I'm a car guy, and if I'm in a car dealer and I see something, oh, that looks a bit yummy, I want that. The temptation, obviously, is to say yes, sign a couple of bits of paperwork, and drive away. It's just a reckless decision, and I can honestly say I've never done that. But I've
got a story about that for you.
You have, yes. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, not on air though. So I was actually a finance broker for Get Approved Finance, and I'm allowed to say it because you just Google the details, it comes up. So we were instructed to cover the interest rate with our finger when pointing where people were to sign.
No way.
Yep. So I was there for 3 months. I was like, nah, I can't do this. I'm out. And so I quit. Then I later on I found out of the 7 brokers, six of them had their license revoked, like for life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think
this is why, I mean, interest rates really matter because, okay, you get yourself into that debt.
It's not just houses, it's car, personal loans, it's everything.
Oh, well, and you're forgetting the commercial sector as well. And business loans, right? So a lot of businesses are trying to scale up, do the business, might get a commercial loan to do that. If they're banking on the fact that, hey, there'll be no interest rises for the next couple of 18 months, 12 months, they're going, right, well, we can forecast, we'll make probably on this amount of infrastructure, this amount of profits, etc. Then those kind of actions just throw those numbers out completely.
Absolutely. I think that's a big factor.
Just another one as well I haven't even thought of, just came to me then. With the foreign exchange markets and share markets, so you can actually leverage your trades backwards and forwards. Would the interest rates going up by the Reserve Bank in Australia affect the leveraging rates?
Well, we saw what happened to the big banks in the United States, not big banks, but some of the smaller banks in the United States, where those interest rate hikes affected the bond price and the investments behind the scenes that those banks were doing. So you can see how the interest rates going up in Australia could affect what the banks, the commercial retail banks, are investing in when it comes to this sort of stuff in terms of bonds, which is typically the conservative investment they really, really like because it's guaranteed and backed by the government.
Well, if you want to keep going even further, you've got residential mortgage bonds as well. So if people start falling over on their mortgages, those residential mortgage bonds go from like AAA credit ratings down to like AA or even an A. So a lot of these bonds that international countries, this is how Australia gets a lot of international investments into the country. They'll actually go buy those bonds that are secured against our mortgages. So that's also going to affect Australia's currency as a whole. So, and that's our credit rating as well.
I mean, the last, I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing a lot more people on the streets begging in Perth.
A lot more.
And I hate to say it's such an annoying thing. You're at traffic lights and you're like, but dude, I've got no money in the car. I do everything. I hate to say if I've got money, I'll spend it. So I deliberately do not carry cash or anything.
See, if you've traveled overseas, this is a common occurrence in certain countries where you see people on the streets doing this. You know, I remember seeing this all over the United States, certain parts of it in relation to, you know, like Los Angeles is typically one of those. I've seen it in South Africa, of course, on the streets, even children begging on the streets. And to see this when it's in your own backyard and you know people are doing it tough. This is not, I mean, I attend a local church on Sundays and I was hearing yesterday about a story about a woman who walked here in Perth for an hour just to get some groceries and a food parcel to feed her family. You know, walked an hour. And of course they gave her one and gave her a ride back and that sort of stuff, and saw the area that they're coming from, and they're doing it tough in that area, and it's starting to hit home.
Here's a little side note to all of that, right? Okay, I wanted to buy something off Marketplace the other day, and I needed cash, okay? And do you know how hard it is to get cash at the moment? Like, it's an absolute nightmare. So there's a couple of, I know that's a strange thing to say, but from a human element, right? When people pull up and when you pull up your car and people come to the window or whatever, it's horrible, it's irritating. But at the same time, what can I give them an FPOS card? Do you know what I mean? Like I just don't have any cash anymore. It's crazy. So this is another way of controlling society. Quite frankly, it's very sad. And I'll be straight out. When I see people begging on the streets, I'm not overly I don't want to give them money. I do find it intrusive, all of that, right? But at the same time, my God, I feel for them. To be in that situation, to be like, my God, how
well. I'm going to sound like a real prick here, because there's no in Australia, with the amount of social services available, Centrelink payments, emergency accommodations, there's absolutely no reason anyone should be begging on the streets.
Well, there is. It's called mental illness, mate.
And also drug addiction.
Yeah, spot on. There's two very good reasons, right?
Have you seen how much a beggar actually earns per hour on the streets?
No, I don't.
It's about $50 an hour.
It's a good market.
It's bloody good market. And
what, in Australia?
Yeah. They did I think it was either Four Corners or Current Affair did one where they had an actor pretend to be a beggar on the street,
right?
And in 1 hour alone, he pulled in $128.
Wow. Okay.
So there's actually a lot of money to be made in begging on the side of the street, because you also got to remember that's all cash.
Mm-hmm.
So then they go down Centrelink and claim all that money as well. So I get some people need it, but what's happening is the way society is set up at the moment, the system is too easily abused. So the people who genuinely need the help don't get it, and then you get a whole heap of free riders just taking the whole system for a ride.
Absolutely. Got Derek beside me again, mate. You have been just diving into the computer, Mr. Information. What have we got to talk about in this little seggy?
Well, back in 2006, an act was passed in Australia called the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Financing Act.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It was always meant to be doing what they call two tranches. And the first was really applied to bullion dealers, gambling authorities, lawyers, and financial institutions, some lawyers and financial institutions. Basically, it's looking at the whole know your client type of legislation that's come in. And I don't know if you've opened a bank account recently, but the amount of paperwork you now go through compared to 10 years ago has just gone through the roof.
Is that right?
And it's getting worse.
We have a family trust, and we're in the process of trying to set up bank accounts for that. And it's just been an absolute beat your head against the wall sort of thing.
Big brother.
Yep.
Crazy stuff.
And what they're now trying to do in the second tranche is to make your friendly real estate agent a part of it.
What?
Lawyers and accountants. So, you want to go buy a house, they're going to have to, they want to put it to a point where you have to know your client. And so it's just crazy.
And I like how they're collecting all the really ethical people. Let's get some used car dealers involved as well, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, they'd like to do that too, I'm sure, for some high-end cars and that sort of thing. And this is the problem with this, is you're adding this burden to certain businesses and sectors of compliance that, the last thing I think your real estate agent wants to be is your police officer.
So,
and this is the irony, is if you roll this out to lawyers, the lawyers and the accountants are meant to represent you, not the government.
So true.
That's what you are paying them to engage with. You go to an accountant to, hey, not only can you help me on my tax returns, but can you help me strategically minimize my tax? And now they're going, oh, well, we want to know all the beneficial. It's ironic. It's putting them in a compromised position, in my view. And with lawyers, well, need I explain more? They are there to represent their clients.
They're becoming a double agent,
as opposed to being an investigator. And I think this is far overreach. What they're pushing for is that, oh, well, they've done this in other sectors of the world, and therefore Australia is lagging. And this is affecting the real estate market because foreign investment is not occurring because they're concerns about this.
No, it's the other way around. They're not investing in Australia because we have so much red tape.
Exactly.
Just quickly from Josh, my son, 14-year-old, reckons your shirt is hideous.
I think it's beautiful. This is actually my favorite, but there you go.
No, I just like the name badge.
Name badge, you like it? Yeah. I did that myself.
Yes.
It says, hello, I'm trying my best.
So it's just going back to the real estate sector. At the moment in Australia, our real estate sector and everything that's associated with is actually a major contribution towards our GDP.
Yeah,
I can find this. If someone had an option of investing into a house or investing into something else, and all of a sudden all this crap comes along, and it's hard enough to buy a house with the amount of paperwork you got to do, I can just see this is this the straw that finally broke the donkey's back?
This country is obsessed. No, hang on, I'll clarify.
Obsessed?
This country's government is obsessed with red and green tape, and does nothing but stifle business, opportunity, and families. Right, simple as that. And I am so over it. And you know what? This is the Labor versus Liberal versus whatever, you know, kind of attitude here. Although Liberal now is pretty much just Labor light, but the Labor Party wants big government, big government all the time, right? And like, if you truly want to enjoy your life, the less interference is the better, right? We have a problem right now. We have a country where we are being constantly stepped on, constantly, like you're saying, we're effectively being spied on by our own accountants there and real estate agents and all that kind of thing. It's got to stop. And I'm sorry to be, you know, harsh to those out there who have, you know, when you vote every few years, okay, but think about who the hell you're voting for. Stop voting for the machine. Start voting for those who are actually going to represent you. This is the result of poor voting.
This is what gets me too, is that the government is basically trying to fall into line with other countries overseas. What happened to our sovereignty?
Oh, what sovereignty?
As a nation, right?
Yeah.
And why would there be pressure from overseas, you know, just because Great Britain's doing this and other countries are doing it? Why do we have to follow suit? You know, including, this is it, the Financial Action Task Force says Australia is now one of only 5 countries, including China, Haiti, Madagascar, and the United States, out of more than 200 that do not regulate tranche 2 entities. Well, why do we have to fall in line with the other 200 countries?
The other thing that you have to take into account for all of these other countries here that they're putting pressure on us for this, we have a different political system to what they do. Our judicial system, even though we're both the Westminster system, it's been modified for by Australians. So they're still running off the British system, which is controlled by the World Economic Forum. So quietly, I think this is just another way that the World Economic Forum is trying to take over all these countries by stealth. So I just, whatever government tries to pull this in, I think they need. I was nearly said something I shouldn't.
Well,
have
it's
then,
interesting
but,
that the push is coming by Attorney General,
and that explains
Mark Dreyfus,
everything.
right? The Attorney General's pushing this in this article.
Well, let's look at the
this is not a political party. This is
No.
Oh,
who appoints the Attorney General?
Well, that's true.
How do you see any credibility in these people, and who appoints them? That's the thing. So, you know, it's very much, it might be a financial thing, but it's very much a political appointment.
It's controlled by the politics.
Of course it is.
It's a financial thing that's controlled by the politics.
Spot on. Yep.
So I guess the question is, how far are we going to let this go? And when does the pushback happen?
Okay.
It's hard, I think, this affects business owners because they usually have complex trust structures to set up and entities to run a business and just get it off the ground, right? Their focus is mainly, look, I just want to make the money. Look, just set this up and let's get this over the line and do what we've got to do, please, because you're holding and slowing me down, these speed bumps. When they start wanting to do also in government, you know, there is talk of these digital IDs for private citizens as well. Okay, so they tried to push that on the director's ID. Yep. As relatives, but we don't really know the results. It's been hush. We don't know how many complied, how many didn't, and now they're trying to push that on the private citizens. You've got to go, guys. How far is enough? And I think too many Australians take for granted their privacy and have surrendered it over the years, where we have very, very little.
I believe, and I could be inaccurate on this, but last time I heard, it was 400,000 company directors had not signed on board with that, right? Even with the threats of the $13,000 fine, they've still stood tall, because you know what, your privacy is important. For God's sake, protect it, okay? And your autonomy over your finances is obviously related to that, and the sovereignty of your country. This is we are selling out. Well, we are just selling out our sovereignty.
The question for me with all of that, Aaron, is they already have things on tax file numbers.
Sure.
They already have things with company numbers and Australian business numbers. So why now do they need another layer of it? And this is what my concern was, is that it's for the benefit of someone else overseas, an international body. That's my suspicion. I can't prove it.
Well, didn't they say they were going to keep the data overseas anyway?
Yeah, that's
most Australian data is kept overseas.
Yeah.
So a friend of ours, Vietnamese, was going through they were Vietnamese. They were going through getting their parents over on a holiday visa. So you would assume that it'd either be processed in Vietnam or Australia.
You think? Yeah.
But it was processed in China.
Yeah, look, no surprise there. I mean, I had to do
why would the Chinese be processing Australian visas for a different country?
Wow. But look, even in everything, like we all get annoyed about the call centers, right? When we call up to get something done, call center, like, yes, a guy with an Indian accent, tells me that he's in downtown Melbourne. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't believe it, right? And that's not the racist thing or any carrying like that. As sitting here as a bloody half Indian myself, right? It's just the fact of the matter is we've got all of these people who in this country could be doing their job. All of those people. I understand the finances of it, whatever, but I am sick to death. So tired of it. I only last week was dealing with the ANZ Bank, and it was just so ridiculous. I had a fight to speak to someone. It's the ANZ Bank, okay, Australia, New Zealand. Do you think I could get an Australian or a Kiwi? No, right? I was all through the Philippines, and I was dealing with people who were poorly trained, and this is my money, and I've had a bloody enough of it. So we need to be more control back to ourselves.
First of all, I have to correct you on something. You're not half Indian. You're an albino Indian.
Thank you. Okay. Let's get the stats right. Okay.
Taz says, greetings, by the way.
Greetings, Taz.
That simply comes to, for someone to answer a telephone, why would you pay $30 an hour when you can pay $8?
Well, I know that. I understand that completely. But, but okay. If you're, say, we're going to use the ANZ as an example, Australia, New Zealand Bank, okay? That's pretty well telling you where it should be. It's like if I was going to ring Aussie Broadband and I was going to get someone in Calcutta, right? Okay.
Well, you do anyway.
Calcutta. Pardon?
You do anyway.
No, you don't.
You sure about that?
Yeah, I've checked on it.
Okay.
Right? So there are some companies that are sticking with their ethics, right? I understand the financial side of it, obviously, right? But you can't just fish everything off overseas. Again, if you're talking about visas here, you are risking vital privacy
especially
and
China, who's got a history of stealing shit. So,
oh really? China? No way.
No. Actually, if you try to do business, let's say you want to import let's say you made a new computer screen that's touchscreen and connects to goggles, whatever. You make something up. To import it and sell it in China, you have to give them the blueprints, the copies of everything.
Wow.
So, like, why would you do shit like that? Like, there's a thing called Command One. It's actually a database that you can buy in the deep dark web. It's got 77 million email, username, passwords that were confirmed by the head of the cybersecurity in Australia because his details were in there. So why the hell would you risk this sort of stuff? And this is, again, going back all the way to the quantum computers and the AIs.
Yep.
At the moment, we're at such a dangerous point because a lot of people don't realize, so what if they steal my date of birth and my name and that? Okay, what happens if someone steals who you are, racks up a whole heap of credit cards under your name?
Yeah.
And because they've forwarded your details, that debt isn't secured to whatever they purchase. It's secured to you as a personal. And then you've got to try and convince these people who have given all this money out that you didn't actually do it.
It's
good luck with that.
And again, we're into international markets here. The money is not in Australia. So, like you're trying to convince someone in a completely other country, no, it's not me, while they're racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt.
And the other issue too, just like you've highlighted, is that more and more, for the last 10, 15 years, more of our information is online. And so when you start getting these hacking stuff, I mean, it's just public. Yes, it's convenient, to sign into your insurer and get your policy up to date and review things and all that sort of stuff. But this information is not so private as you think it is.
No,
what gets me too is people who put security cameras on the internet, right? who can see into their homes and monitor their cameras inside. I mean, you basically, if anybody could get those URLs, they can see you in the privacy of your home. It's
you know how easy it is to get into one of those things? I'm not even a hacker, and it's not that hard. You just need the IP address of the business.
Is that all?
That's it.
Wow.
So, and to get an IP address, all you do is like plug a USB into like a little tablet or something and into their modem. And you just go to what's my IP address, and it tells you straight away. You take that away, then you've got instant access into their computer.
That's terrifying.
So it's really, really easy to get that sort of stuff. Taz is online. She said that Mnet was brilliant. Their customer service center was actually in Perth.
Very cool.
So
Mnet.
Mnet. I've never actually heard of them.
No,
AMNET. Maybe we should hit them up for some sponsorship.
Tell you right now, it sounds like they've got
the internet here is pretty shit. So
it's fantastic. What are you talking about?
I've got Telstra at home, and mine's terrible. So,
Look, I think ultimately it's about our privacy, and I think that people keep saying this whole, well, if you've got nothing to hide,
Yeah.
no, it's
That's not the point.
it's not
You
the
actually
point.
do have something to hide.
Yeah.
You actually do. I think you've got to stop using that expression.
Yep.
Do you want hackers having your credit card details? You do
Hell
have
no.
something to hide. Do you want them to have your tax file number?
You know how easy it is to get credit card details?
Oh, look, my ex-wife didn't have damage with mine. I
No,
can't
no,
imagine
this
someone who likes
Oh.
me even less.
You know the credit card readers. You know how the Wi-Fi, you go up and you tap and go.
Yeah,
The readers,
Yep.
card readers.
Yeah.
So they actually read your credit card number. So
Yeah.
you can actually boost those signals. You give it enough power, enough juice. Let's say you've got a car full of car batteries in the back of it with one of those readers. You can reach up to 20 meters and grab every single credit card number off that credit card number and expiry date off every single one of those cards.
Is that why it tells us I've got all these batteries?
No. So this, that too. So this is one of the reasons why at the Perth airport, you are not allowed to stay there for more than 5 minutes because people were just rocking up with these card readers and grabbing everyone's details.
No
So you can actually
way.
now compact it into a suitcase. So a lot of the scammers will actually walk through airports with card readers. That's why you've got those card shields now whenever you go traveling to
Yeah.
stop your card details from getting stolen. Now, let's say you get your card details stolen today. They won't use it for 6 to 12 months.
Right.
Because they know where if you start getting a heap of transaction on your
Yeah,
card, they
yeah.
know exactly where it happened and they
Sure.
can trace them down. So they wait.
Wow.
So this is why a lot of people need to start actually taking their personal identities safely.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is, let's say they rack up massive credit card debt in another country.
Mm.
That if that country has a link to Australia financially, and you own a property outright, they can start taking caveats out on your property. They can try to sell your property out from underneath you. I've heard in especially America and the UK, you have a thing called title deed insurance because if
Right.
they can get enough details off yours, they can actually go to the bank and take your title deed and sell your property out from underneath you.
Incredible.
You had some questions
Yes,
from our audience.
yes,
didn't you?
yes, So-
I want to address those before we forget because we'll get into this deep stuff and they'll go, oh, we're out of time.
Yep.
So the first one's from a Facebook user. So if you are watching on Aaron or myself's personal pages, your names don't come up I'm not saying for privacy reasons, we just don't know how to fix it. So the question was, do you think it's worth getting gold, silver, and where would you get this?
Okay, I've got to throw in a disclaimer here. I cannot give you general or specific financial advice. Okay, this is a show about education. So a lot of people there's someone in our network whose advice I really, really like in what they teach a certain group of investors to have 3 months worth of gold, silver, and cash for emergency situations. And I think
We've got permission to reference them as long as we say which company they're associated with. So that would be Stephen Pettit from Global Wealth Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
globalwealthclub.com.au if you want more details.
I think that's pretty smart for those emergency things.
Hmm.
There are two aspects for those who want to do it. There's three reasons people do this, okay? One are thinking in terms of currency, and they're thinking of an emergency situation. Let's say the ATMs go down for whatever reason. Kind of the Boy Scout be prepared. To the extreme of preppers. I don't like the connotation. I think it's just smart. Boy Scout, be prepared. But preppers do that as well. Some people are proudly preppers. So fine.
I know a few of them. So
The second reason is investment. Some people see that as a great way to hedge against inflation and the growth of the asset as well as it appreciates. There are some arguments that gold and silver have been squashed in terms of their prices. So is it the best investment vehicle compared to what? Often it's done in downturns, economic downturns with stock markets are crashing and that sort of stuff. People like to go to the safe haven of gold and silver.
Okay.
The third one is coin collectors. Okay. So if you, and within that, those three reasons where, it's a pretty coin, I want to collect it for the future, you've got to really know your coins because, one can be really popular today. In 10 years, it may not be so popular, etc. So there's all those three aspects. Now, whether you store it, the second part of this is storage, right? Whether you are the custodian of it yourself or you leave that to a third party gets really, really interesting. Why? Well, investors such as those doing it through a self-managed super fund cannot legally keep it in their own home because they would be ruled as benefiting before retirement. So they've got to look at some vault somewhere to do that through.
Okay.
that's really interesting. So just for transparency here, I actually edit videos for Global Wealth Club. So I do get paid by them. There's this one video we did with a guy called Virgil. I'd love to get him onto a show with you. He's the founder of Silver Bullion based out of Singapore. Okay. And what they're doing is absolutely amazing. So
they want to build the biggest vault in the world. Yeah. Which is pretty extraordinary.
In the world or Southern Hemisphere?
I think it's in the world.
Is my understanding the construction has actually started already.
Right. Yeah.
So It's just, I've seen the virtual tours. I've actually edited a lot of the videos where he's actually presenting about it, and they were talking about how there was this, I can't remember if it was Virgil or his business partner were doing a webinar, and they were saying that back in, say, 1920s, if you wanted to buy an Armani suit, it was like $200, but an ounce of gold was roughly $200 as well. If you have a look at it now, a really nice Armani suit is about $3,000. Well, an ounce of gold is, was it 2,500 Aussie dollars at the moment or something?
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's a bit more in Aussie dollars. It's just hit the 2,000 mark in US dollars.
So it'd be about $3,000 then. So
Okay.
it's one of those things to show that the gold is actually a very, very safe hedge. It's a long-term investment, so but it's a good way to counter inflation
Sure.
and what Biden's doing and stuff like that. So
Sure. It's actually rolling with inflation rather than obviously, paper bills are going the other way.
So anyone going down that path has really got to consider a lot of things. One, custodianship of this, where you're going to put it, where you're going to hide it, go telling people that you've got it, this sort of thing.
Tell me. Just
actually,
You'll notice a lot of the gold, silver stacker type guys in America, you only will see their hands on camera. You'll never see their face. Right. Which is really, really interesting.
Yep.
Because they've got a lot that they've been stacking over the years. So that's interesting. You've also got to get accounting advice because in Australia, there's often capital gains tax to consider with precious metals. Obviously, there isn't cash, but there is with precious metals. So what's the best way to own it? And it may not necessarily be in your own name.
the other thing as well, do you store it in Australia or do you store it internationally? Because in Australia, gold and silver are considered an asset, where my understanding is Singapore is one of the only countries where it's considered a commodity and therefore the government cannot repossess it.
to me, it seems a commodity. I don't understand the logic the other way, to be honest.
What's this?
Like I see it as it's a commodity. I don't see it as an asset at all.
No, it's an asset. In Australia, it's considered an asset.
That's what I'm saying. But okay, if you can trade with it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you can trade with anything if you look at bartering, I guess. But from the point of view of it's to me, it's a currency. But,
Look, there's a strong argument that it should be considered that, Aaron, but it isn't. And within that framework, we have to play the game.
Yeah.
So the ownership is a really, really big deal. There's one final point that they raised in that question. I want to raise that is that do you deal with the mint or do you deal with a dealer? There's some competitiveness. I've noticed that some of the prices of dealers are actually less than the mint. And
I did some digging into that to find out why. So a lot of the dealers are actually wholesalers for the mint. So it still comes from the mint, but they'll have their markups. And so when let's say a gold coin is $20 in gold, then they have to mint it. So they've got their charges from doing that. So when they sell it to the public, let's say there's a 100% markup. So $20 becomes $40. They'll still have a wholesale cost, which it costs them to make it. So it might only be, say, $25 to make it. So that $15 extra is their markup. That's their profit, their returns.
Yep.
So when you have a dealer, they will actually sell it to the dealer at just above cost. So they'll make 2 or 3% on top of it. So therefore, the dealer has to say, right, we've got, say, $15 a coin to play with. Instead of to get more customers, we might drop our prices to, say, $10 a coin for profits, because they don't have all the other overheads that the Perth Mint does. So therefore, they can drop their prices to match.
And you've named a particular mint there. There's also the situation where, guys, you can actually buy online, so with the dealers, and they can ship it to you. And then you've got the extra costs of shipping, depending on how much you're doing it. So, if you're local, oops, I kicked your camera. Sorry. Hi, guys. The Earth isn't shaking. If you are... if you're local, then that makes a big difference too in terms of the cost in terms of acquiring that. Yeah. And then you got to understand the difference between spot price and what the dealer is doing as well. So they've got to make a little profit on the top of that. It's like a brokerage if you do a stock trade, but that price is going to fluctuate due to the price of the cost of gold or silver going up or down.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, and also other thing to remember, the cost of a coin versus bullion is the coin is always going to be more expensive because there's a lot more milling, there's forging and all that sort of stuff that's got to go into it, where a bullion, they just pour it and off you go.
The less you buy, the more expensive it is. So if you buy, and even in bullion terms, so if you buy a kilogram of silver, that's going to cost you more than, say, 10 or 15 kilograms of silver.
And the collector's coins, I've also found, are more expensive than the normal coins because there's a lot more artwork involved. And generally they've got like one series. what are they called? The molds that they use, the stamps.
Yeah, and you've got it. This is where the debate is in those circles. Most of them are after the metal itself. They're not wanting the artwork, because the artwork, what's the price on that? That's arguable. Whereas the actual metal, that's what they're after.
I think it's what you're planning to invest. If you're planning to invest in the artwork side of things, and say the society keeps traveling along nice and fine, and we don't become mini China, then the artwork might be a better option for investment purposes. But if you're collecting gold and silver to get away from fiat currency, it's questionable whether you should be going for the artwork coins over just the standard coins.
Oh, you were talking before about you're buying from other countries and that sort of thing, so it's a physical product. So I suppose you've got to consider obviously the postage there. Some countries
you can deal with dealers, right? There are Australian dealers who deal in Canadian maples, right? So Canadian maple is certainly just the leaf of the Canadian symbol, and they put it on the coin, right?
Well, interestingly, again, this is information from one of the videos I watched that I edited. So silver bullion has actually got arrangements with most of the mints around the world. So if you choose to have them to store your gold, let's say you're an Australian citizen, but you're on holiday in America and you need to get some of your gold out, you can actually have silver bullion transfer your gold to the American mint. So they'll sell their gold to the American mint for you to pick up in America. So it's just like a gold exchange. So there's so many things that you can touch and so much you can actually do with gold. It's not just buy and hold. There's so many things, and they've actually now got a cryptocurrency that's backed off the gold called, I think it's Cash. So CACH, I think it is, with an E on the end. So, but yeah, silver bullion is like, what they're doing is just worlds ahead of everyone else.
To me, I just see everyone running from the fiat currency so much. I really do.
Gold is hitting headlines all over the place, and it's interesting. In Canada, speaking of which, they've just had 20 million Canadian dollars stolen of gold and valuables from the airport on the 17th of April. So an aircraft container carrying that arrived at the airport in the evening, and they put it in the cargo holding facility, and that's where the police believe the heist took place. And they don't know much more than that. It's one of the biggest heists they've ever had. Right there at the airport.
When I was working I used to be an airport security officer, and we used to, like, with the x-ray machines, they just come up black. You can't see anything. So normally you can see, so organic is orange, electronical is blue, and depending what it is will depend what color it is. Like firearms come up seriously black. And so gold does the same. So every time something like that comes through, because we can't see what's in it, we have to look inside the bag. And all the gold dealers, they come through with the carry-on bags, and they're extremely hush-hush. They just show you a card, you take them into a room, you check to make sure nothing's in there, then off they go. But if they're moving that amount of money, I'm amazed they actually even allowed it into the whole of the plane. And I'm not talking about the airport here. I'm talking about the people actually sending the gold, because under normal circumstances, that much gold would be under guard 24 hours a day. And never leave their side.
And of course, insurance is involved in this, moving these kind of volumes of gold and silver around as well. So
absolutely,
it's an interesting world, that one. So it's a great question.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised the airport even allowed that much unaccompanied gold, because it's just the risk levels associated with it.
Yeah, well, it's the Canadian government at the moment, so I'm not surprised. It just seems to be the most inept government at on the go. I say that because
it's a whole different world, Aaron. I mean, it's a whole different world about wealth being moved around and all this sort of stuff. And I think the more you dig in, the more we're discovering too as to what's been going on.
Yeah, look, haven't we had our eyes opened a lot over the last few years? Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
So just on as a bit of a follow-up from the gold question, obviously COVID cost a lot of money to the Australian government. The government's got to recover that money somewhere from somehow. Do you think the chances of the government doing another, you have to sell all your gold to us, do you think that's an actual possibility in the near future?
I think it's political suicide if you do that.
Look, I think anything is possible. I think that's what COVID's taught us. Mandating that you can't work in certain sectors unless you get a vaccine, and your bodily autonomy has been compromised and taking the choice away from people. So, I don't take anything for granted these days, even assembling with crowds of people. So I think the way I look at it is, this is one of the concerns that they have about gold and silver, all right, governments, is that it can be melted. Right? Yeah. and then
very easily too.
And redone, and because it survives fire, right? And so that's one of the attractions of precious metals, is that, you know, they can be recast. They do it at Perth Mint every day for the tourists. They apparently do the same cast of gold for the tourists every single day. So,
well, it's funny they can even splice it with a bit of silver.
That's right. Yeah.
So will the governments take it? We don't know what government's going to do. The better government you put in, the less likely, I suppose, in terms of those kind of risks.
So Murphy's Law, if it can happen, it will.
Pretty much.
Not necessarily.
No,
not necessarily.
I don't know. I have a lot less faith than you do when it comes to government, I guess.
I'm not putting my faith in government, but I'm looking at going, hey, gold and silver have been around a long time, and it doesn't go away. And what's interesting is what the central banks are doing. They are gobbling it up big time.
But I think that's got a lot more to do with BRICS than anything else, personally.
I think they're moving it to, like you said, a cryptocurrency that's backed by gold. That it actually means, because most of those cryptocurrencies don't really have a lot of value to them unless they have a real world application. And amongst how many thousands of them, you've got to ask which ones actually do.
I've heard there's 40,000 different cryptocurrencies. I don't know how. I think Brendan was saying that on his show.
Couldn't tell you the number.
Well, that's doubled since the last time I looked. Yeah. So
there's an insane amount, and most of them don't be just crud. I think Brendan and that's, if you want to learn more about cryptocurrencies, tomorrow's show is it going ahead tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely.
Public holiday.
Yeah.
Crypto Hour of Power at 1 p.m.
Holiday.
Yeah, Anzac Day, you twat.
Lest we forget.
You totally forgot, because
it's not that. No, it's me. I literally have forgotten which day it is today. So there you go.
Well, we're doing the Greater Wealth of Derek, so it's a Monday.
Yeah, good point.
Don't ask me the date.
Sorry, there we go. 24th. I can work that out.
Actually, hang on.
Anzac Day is tomorrow.
No, at the bottom of my screen it says 24th. So yeah,
there you go. Yes.
Hey, well done the Anzacs, eh?
No, look, this is such a big thing, honestly. And look, tomorrow is a great opportunity to show our respect. An opportunity that's been taken away from us for the last few years and been diluted a lot. And I think that dilution has just been so harmful to the Australian psyche. So quite frankly, yes, get out there and celebrate the lives of those who gave their lives for us. I think it's so important.
The bit that pisses me off the most is the amount of Australian from all walks of life, not just like white Australians, but all of them. Like, there was actually quite a lot of Aboriginal Anzacs. Believe it or not, there was actually Muslim Anzacs as well out there. I hate the fact that we're celebrating the death of the people that died to keep our country free, but yet they're trying to dilute how important that sacrifice actually was, and by taking away all our freedoms. And I think that's something that people need to remember. We've got a very, very proud military history, and we should be celebrating it, not trying to dilute it.
No, absolutely. Because you know what? We know our way forward when we look at our past. You can't build a future if you don't know our history.
And I think we need to look after our soldiers too.
Very much.
Gosh, because
past and present.
Yeah, because of some of them, the stuff that they've seen and stuff that no human should have to go through.
I've got a personal friend who's gone through that, and we tend to think of Anzac so much as so far in the past. But I've got a couple of friends.
They're current. Even said today.
Seen some horrendous things not that long ago. So yes, give these people. Give our fellow Aussies that love, give them that support, and also completely appreciate and respect what they've done. Because the freedoms that we keep going on about freedom, well, these are the people who actually put their lives rather on the line. Yeah.
Well, it's not just their lives as well; it's their whole entire family's life. Because once they leave active duty, it's their families that's got to pick up the broken person that's left over from it. Because I don't know any military people. If they come back.
We'll end the show there. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And we will finish it actually on that with the song that's all about this. So thank you very much for being part of the Greater World.